Hey friends, it's Teresa and welcome back to my channel. In today's video we are going to be talking about some books, because I'm sure this list will grow the more I read and the more I really sit down and look at my bookshelves. But I want to recommend some books that to me read like a Studio Ghibli film. So if you like these kind of videos, let me know in the comments down below. I have plans to do books that read like Howl's Moving Castle, the book, and then books that read like Howl's Moving Castle, the movie. So if you're interested in that, let me know and I'll try to expedite my reading process. If you want to see more of me, hit like, subscribe, and comment, and let's just get into it. So I know that a lot of the things that Studio Ghibli has been characterized for is like coziness, like lots of found family dynamics and just a lot of like self-love and self-care. While I haven't seen the entire Studio Ghibli but I have been studying and I have rewatched a lot of these movies religiously, or like some of the other movies religiously, and I've watched a lot of movies or analyses on Hayao Miyazaki as a writer, as a filmmaker, and I am well aware of there are certain tropes that he just really just jams in there and like hammers in and screws in as best as he can. So I kind of went off the vibes of like what is typically in a Studio Ghibli movie, like its themes, its core dynamics, not just its coziness. So I came up with some core values here for the Ghibli movies that I will present to y'all now, and what I used as a like understanding of or what I use as an understanding or a baseline to determine what read like a Studio Ghibli movie. So found family is a huge one, obviously. Sibling relationships and family dynamics in general are huge in the Ghibli movies. There's a lot of parental relationships, lots of sibling dynamics that we see, and lots of people just finding family in themselves. Obviously, finding yourself and finding your passion and learning when to take breaks so you don't burn out. In cases of like Sophie, who found herself in her comfortness, Kiki, who had to take a break from her passion to be able to renew and rejuvenate herself. Caring for the environment. There's a lot of environmental themes that we see in a lot of Hayao Miyazaki's works. Princess Mononoke, to my knowledge, is one of the bigger ones, but it's just, to me, he has a lot of care for the things around him. We see a lot of notes to environment and the natural world in Spirited Away. Obviously, one thing I had to look for was lyrical and image-inducing prose, because a lot of the art that he uses and the art style is very much invoking a feeling, an image in your mind. Like when you think of Studio Ghibli, you have set images and pictures in your mind of what pops up immediately. So I wanted to make sure we got in there, and of course, I wanted a story that made me cry. With that in mind, let's start the first book. And I do own all of these books, almost all of these books. You know what? I'm just gonna pull them out. It's not that hard. Okay. The first one that I'm going to recommend for y'all, if you're looking for something kind of Ghibli-ish or just something to kind of remind you of it, this one specifically just felt like very comforting and very like familiar to me, and it definitely gave me Spirited Away vibes. And that is Hotel Magnifique by Emily J. Taylor. This is a YA high fantasy world set in the Belle Epoque inspired hotel. This hotel only appears and comes up every now and again. So these two sisters, Johnny and Zoza, can't seem to find their way in the world. So they kind of make sure that they are on this boat or this like next stop to become part of the Hotel Magnifique crew. But once on the crew, these two sisters are separated, so Zoza is put into kind of like an imprisonment and kind of kept in a different form that makes it difficult for Janie to find her. So Janie has to infiltrate this hotel and tries to figure out where her sister is and how to free her, and finds there are a lot more darker things happening in this hotel than she initially thought. Here, I gave this book a 4, and I really enjoyed it when I read it. It was a good standalone, which I think is rare to come by. A lot of publishers tend to push for more longer works, but I love me a good fantastical standalone. I think this is a story with some really good sibling relationships. Again, the sibling relationships is something that's a very paramount thing in a lot of Ghibli movies. A lot of them. One of them is one that I will never ever rewatch again. but it's paramount to the Ghibli movies, that familial dynamic. I think the like concept of her going undercover, and I think she even forgets her own name in this one, I forget, is very reminiscent of Chihiro in Spirited Away. We get to see Janie kind of become a stronger version of herself, really find herself in this attempt to find her sister, and find her footing and figure out what she wants to do to be able to not only help her sister, but eventually help the people of this hotel. I think the magic here, like I said, it's very reminiscent to me of Spirited Away, where everyone's kind of sequestered off into their own sections. You forget names, you forget identities, and it's just a whole thing. But I think there's something kind of beautiful about the magic system here, which reminds me very much of the beauty of the magic system in Spirited Away, while also being equally as frightening in both forms of media. Obviously, the fact that this hotel disappears and comes in random places, very reminiscent of the night circus. But it's just, there's something about it that's just like a beautiful kind of magic, but also is kind of frightening about it, which to me also comes off in Spirited Away, where we see the beauty of magic. We get to see Haku transform into this beautiful dragon, and we get to see the cute little Sut sprites and like the magic of the world. We get to see the more disturbing parts of it, like obviously the spider guy, while he was cool, kind of creepy. The lady whose name I'm forgetting, creepy, very creepy. But like, there's just a lot of like kind of those things where it's like awe-inspiring but terrifying at the same time, that I think is very reminiscent of like what a Studio Ghibli movie it can be. The next book that I do not own is The Enchanted Hacienda by J.C. Cervantes. I just did a review of this. This is going to go also in another Ghibli movie, that Ghibli related video that I have going on. I just haven't had a chance to read the rest of the books for it. So, but this is an adult kind of like Encanto vibes. Harlow just lost her job as a publisher, where she's just trying to figure out basically how to live. She lost this job and she was really excited to edit this book that she had took such a hard time trying to like get. She breaks up with her boyfriend because he's kind of a doucher. Who'd have thunk? Man, his name, I think his name is literally Chad, which should have been the first red flag. So she kind of ups and leaves her place in New York and goes back to home in San Diego, I want to say, to her family home, the Estrada home. Now, Harlow is the Mirabelle of this family, so to speak. Everyone in this family is named after a flower, and they all have kind of like plant-related magic, or at least floral-related magic. Harlow is the only one who is not. So while she's hunkering down, figuring things out, she starts to write a book and really tries to figure out what she actually wants to do in life, instead of just being aimless. And she also meets a mysterious stranger. Again, we have more of that family dynamic. This family is very close-knit. They care for each other very strongly, and they just want to take care of one another no matter how far they are from like off the coast. The magic system, again, is another strong thing, I think, in a lot of like Ghibli films. I guess in some of the more modern Ghibli films, the magic system is more of like a cozy fantasy in terms of like, and then like My Neighbor Totoro, where the magic is kind of there, and there's undercurrents of magic, and it's present, but it's not it's not in your face like it would be in Spirited Away or in Ponyo. It's an undercurrent, it's very subtle, but it's very present, and you feel it throughout the book. It also follows the themes that is very prominent in a Studio Ghibli movie, which is finding yourself and finding your passion. We see Harlow really struggle with where she wants to be in the world, and she kind of just lets things happen for herself. But this is the one thing, this book that she's starting to write, that she really wants to take hold and grab by the horns and really just lean into what it is. And there's also a really cute romance. So the next one I think definitely falls into the more concept of like a cozy, like a cozy analysis of Studio Ghibli, where you see the visuals of like the wind blowing the grass, the flowers getting set in the vase, the cutting of the food, the eating of the food, the cooking of the food, the nature. I got lost. But that book is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree. I know I bring this book up a lot. I'm really sorry, but I just really love this book. This is an adult cozy fantasy following Vib, who is the orc. It's set in a D&D inspired world, so. But it follows Viv, who is an orc who is just tired of the adventuring. She's had her rounds, she's had her fill. She just wants to retire, and stops swinging her, I think she has a great axe around, or a great sword. It's a really big item. And she decides to open up a coffee shop in a town that doesn't know what coffee quite is. And throughout this book, we get to see her kind of create her family, really find her passion in this world, and really start to make a difference with the people around her. This was just the precious book I've ever read. It definitely has that found family aspect, again, with Viv finding people who really just fit her niche and attracting the people that she really wants to be around. She's done with adventuring, she's done with the plotting, the courting, the stealing, the smiting, the killing. She just wants people around her who want the same things as her, and it's really nice to see that. We also get to see her find her passion of running this place, of becoming this business owner of a store that she really is passionate about. It's one of my favorite stories of all time, honestly. It's just like a warm hug. The food here, the food that is described, the smells that are described, is very much a Ghibli scene come to prose. It's the best way I can describe it. It's just like a warm hug of a movie. It's a warm hug of a book, which I think a lot of us will agree is how we feel about Ghibli movies when we go back and rewatch them. It's just such a good time, and I just can't not tell people about it. I want to read the prequel, but I also like Viv in this context. I don't want her to see Viv in the previous context. I want her in this one. But I highly recommend if you haven't read it. It's just such a cute book. It's so good. The next one is going to be another kind of cozier interpretation of a Ghibli movie, and that is The Tree Dragon Society by Katie O'Neill. This is, I want to say a YA, maybe even younger, maybe middle grade. A middle grade gothic novel, she a thin one, following Greta, who discovers a tea dragon in the market. She takes this tea dragon back to its little home, and finds out there's a dying art of tea making. Basically what it is that you take care of these cute little dragons, these precious little beings, and they grow tea leaves from either their back, their horns, and to me, it's just kind of a paramount of one of the themes in Ghibli, which is living and coexisting with nature and taking care of nature and its inhabitants, and seeing what nature can return back to you because of it. I think it's just a very simple and cute read. And again, it has that very subtle current of magic with obviously the dragons, because dragons are not native to the real world. But it has the undercurrent of magic that I think just really fits a Studio Ghibli vibe. It's just soft and sweet read, and I think you'll really enjoy it if you're in just kind of that soft mood that a Studio Ghibli movie can get or can give you. And I think again it has just that paramount of we take care of the earth, and in return the earth takes care of us. And I think that's just a theme that we need to explore more in Ghibli movies. But the second to last book, because this author has popped up, I haven't read a ton from them recently. I plan to change that because they have come out with a lot of books and now I'm really behind the backlist, but this was one of my auto-buy authors for a long time, and that is Blanca and Roja by Anna Marie McLemore. This is a retelling of Swan Lake. It's a YA retelling of Swan Lake following these two sisters. Their entire family line has been cursed to basically put these two daughters in competition, because on the eve of the younger sister's 15th birthday, the swans will descend upon the heavens and choose a sister to turn into a swan and then take away. So they have to basically choose, make it away so you don't get chosen. That is until one day a young boy who is completely lost and has no memories of themselves, is it lost and doesn't have memories? I feel like it's a very common theme with Anna Marie McLemore. Two boys become drawn into the game. They kind of fall into it. I think one of them is found in the woods and the other one just kind of happens upon this family. Again, it's a good book. This follows a lot of the themes I talked about with sibling dynamics. The magic system, again, very Ghibli-like, very subtle, but still has a very strong presence in there. I think this story, like I said, is very strong in the sibling dynamics. This story made me cry because it just reminds me of the kind of love and care that siblings should have for each other and can have for each other, and how much that love can transcend things like generational trauma and just like break the chains that their ancestors have given them. It makes me emotional thinking about it. I also just think that Anna Marie McLemore just has a way with the writing that is just not, I wouldn't say profound, because I think that'd be the wrong word, but it's just so magical and so lyrical. You really get to see these characters transform as they're writing the story, as we're following them through this journey. And it's just so beautiful, and I think it's just a testament to the kind of writer that Anna Marie McLemore is. And the last book on this list is a little bit heftier. It's a hefty one, but that is The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. This is an adult historical fantasy following two magicians, Celia, who is a sorcerer's daughter, and Marco, who is a sorcerer's apprentice. These two, from their young childhood, have been put into a competition against each other to eventually win the greatest like sorcerer of all time. And their backdrop is the Night Circus, which is a circus that appears in the night, obviously, and disappears the next day, and it reappears throughout different locations throughout the world. There is no set date, there is no set time as to when it will return. It's just kind of a guessing game. I have a lot of love for this book. I need to do a reread. It's been so long. But I think this just follows that very lyrical prose that I think a Studio Ghibli movie into a book would be. There's a lot of information in this book, obviously. It's a historical fiction. So there's a lot of background setting to get. But I think you get it in a way that informs you of where you are in the world and doesn't really dump this information on you. There's a lot of found family in this book, where we get to see the family that Celia and Marco make in the night circus. We get to see this kind of like almost like parallel story between these two young children make as they follow the night circus. And we get to see that like very ever-present magic that is like, again, both awe-inspiring and equally terrifying at the same time. And it's just like, I think when I think of what a Studio Ghibli movie would look like as a book, this one reminds me of it, because I can just picture it. You know, everyone's in like almost like 1800s garb. There's like clocks going everywhere. There are things that are warping and changing. Things are floating through the air. And there's just like a lot of like love and life that I think this book translates, that I think a lot of Ghibli movies tend to have. But that is it for books that read like a Studio Ghibli movie to me. If you are interested in more books that read like this, let me know in the comments, and I will resume my search through my shelves and my future reads. But if you guys like this video, let me know in the comments, and until next time, stay safe, and I'll see you in my next one. Bye.